The upperclassmen think that. They can cut down on this. I just stomped on your Joe, dude.
As long as it wasn't that one, at least.
Alright. Today, we are going to take a look at rotations. Okay? Rotation, okay? We can describe in a few different ways, right? But we're going to call a rotation a spin around a fixed point. When we're doing these, okay, we can rotate figures at lots of different angles. Okay? We can say that our figure is going to rotate at a specific angle and a specific direction. We are usually going to assume that we're rotating in a counterclockwise direction. So which direction is that? Like, would I spin, like if I've got a figure, does that mean I'm spinning to the left or to the right? Which way is counterclockwise? Okay, counterclockwise would be to the left, right? The opposite direction that a clock moves. So I'm just going to write down the rules for rotating here, and then we'll do some examples and kind of explain how those rules work. Okay, so if I want to rotate something 90 degrees counterclockwise about the origin, our rule is going to be to take our original coordinate point, and I'm going to flip the coordinates and take the opposite of what y was. Okay? For example, if my original point was, I don't know, 1, 2, and I rotate that 90 degrees, what I do is flip those two numbers and take the opposite of whatever the y coordinate was, right? So I found this first one. The rule for rotating 180 degrees, my original point, and just take the opposite of each of the coordinates. I don't flip them. I just take the opposite of each of them. For example, if I had the points, I don't know, 3, -4, and I rotate that 180 degrees, that will now be the point -3, +4. Okay. And then my final rule, rotating 270 degrees. Okay? So taking a figure and rotating it 3/4 of a turn. Right? 90 degrees would be 1/4 of a turn, 180 is half a turn, and 270 would be 3/4 of a turn. So my rule for this one is take my coordinates and I flip them again, but this time I take the opposite of what the x coordinate was. For example, if my original point was -2, right? I flip my coordinates, so I'll to make this 5, and then I take the opposite of what the x was. So I'll make the 5 negative. Okay, so these rules, okay, we're just going to use, we will need to memorize these 3 rules. We're rotating 90, 180, and 270 the origin. Okay, so we're going to jump into a couple of examples and kind of explain how these work in a little bit more detail. Okay. Does everybody have the rules copied down here?
No.
All right, so let's take a look at this first example here. I want to take triangle ABC and rotate it counterclockwise. So just like we've been doing, the first thing we want to do is plot our original coordinates. So A is at 2, 7. B is at 6, 5. And C is at 4, 1. Okay, so here is my original triangle. And I want to rotate this 90 degrees counterclockwise. So before we actually do that, okay, we want to try to visualize where this is going to end up.
So that would be -7 and 2.
Yeah, so if we're thinking that our rule is this, right? So my A, I would flip the coordinates and take the opposite of the first one, right? So if I flip them, it would go to 7, 2, take the opposite of what Y was, which is now my X. Yeah, it'll be at -7, 2, right? So if I'm rotating this figure 90 degrees, it's going to end up over here somewhere. A prime is at -7, +2. Where would B prime end up? Where is it? -5, 6. Right? I'm flipping those two coordinates and taking the opposite of my new X coordinate. And then C, -1, 4. Right, so let's plot those. So B prime at -5, 6. And C prime at -1, 4. Okay, so here is where my triangle will be after I rotated 90 degrees with respect to the origin. Okay, so what we just did, and if I were to connect each of these coordinates to the origin, right, so let's say I draw a line from C straight to the origin, and then I connect that to C prime. Okay, essentially what we're doing, okay, is connecting each of those to my center of rotation and just rotating that line 90 degrees. Okay, if I were to connect B and B prime, that same thing would happen. I would end up with a perfect 90-degree angle of a segment that's the same length. Same thing for A. If I draw a line from A to the origin, take that line and rotate it 90 degrees, that's exactly where A prime will end up. Okay? So we're rotating our figure 90 degrees counterclockwise. The rule, okay, is much easier to remember than trying to sketch this out, okay, trying to sketch out 90-degree angles with sides of the same length. Okay? It's a lot easier to just remember the rule to draw our new figure. Questions? Do you guys want to do another one together, or do you think you can try one? Try it? All right. So why don't you guys try number 2? So number 2 is a 180-degree rotation. So look up top and use your rule for 180. See if you guys can draw your original figure. And then its rotation 180 degrees.
Yeah.
So, in this case, they're all positive. Yeah, it's just opposite sign. If it was negative, it would be positive. Yeah. What's up?
So we just turn it on.
Yeah, you just take the opposite side.
They both go to negative.
So then they both go to negative. Yeah.
Turn negative things.
So you just take the opposite side.
You better not start yet.
No, I'm not yet. Got it.
We're doing okay over here, guys.
That's attempted credit, dummy.
Mr. Fach, we have a question over here. I don't want to talk. But like, let's say over here, one of your numbers is already negative. So does it just say, it switched to positive? So really, you're just changing the sign. Okay.
Am I good?
Yeah, looks good. Okay, so it looks like a lot of people are doing well with number 2, so you can go ahead and move on to number 3 or number 4 here. Oh yeah. Yeah.
What's wrong, buddy? It's looking like the same set.
Or the Y.
Yeah. What? I'm talking to you.
Numbers.
Alright, so one more time.
Mhm.
This would be 4, -3, right?
Yes.
And 4, -6, 5, -8.
If mine's already a negative, when it changes to a positive.
If part of the rule is to make it negative, then yes. Okay, so here are the rest of the answers for the front. Okay, so check your work as you're going, but we'll just say that the rest of this paper is your homework. All right. What was this one? Was that the 180? Yeah, so 180 we don't flip it, right? 180 x just goes to the opposite, y just goes to the opposite. There's 2 6, there will just be -2, -6.